Sally, go after the culprit. I've already sent my clone after her. While the councillors were calming down, we acted on our own. The people around us also began to examine what had happened. Speaker Lester, the captain of the guards, the captain of apostles Offord and Hinata, in particular, discussed amongst themselves. Did they try to kill someone with this? This is a bullet, you need a certain item to fire it, something that we don't really have around here. Then, could the culprit's target be His Highness Elric? And their goal was? You can guess that he wants to pin the blame on Demon Lord Rimuru. I see. If Prince Elric were killed under those circumstances, people would surely direct their suspicion towards His Majesty Rimuru. Tempest's inclusion into the council would prove to be difficult. Indeed. Perhaps that was their true intention. These fools were used as disposable pawns. Hinata answered everyone's questions and proceeded with the investigation smoothly. It was most fortunate that I wasn't considered a suspect. Elric was saved, but for disrupting the council conference this time, he would still be sentenced afterward. Saw someone was trying to kill me. He muttered anxiously. Well, this guy did do stupid things, I didn't want him to die. Don't worry. Since my apologies, Elric Dono wasn't killed, these unknown culprits have failed, and their plan was disrupted. There's no reason for them to attempt it again now. Mainly because it would be impossible to try and pin the crime on me. In this way, Elric had lost his value. That's why he didn't need to be afraid of that assassination anymore. But, I'm a prince of a powerful nation, this talk of value. That was a hard question to answer, actually. Before his charade today, as an heir to the crown, his value would have been quite high. However, he wasn't actually the crown prince, as there were other possible successors as well. Moreover, with today's events, it may have been different had their plans succeeded, but given what actually took place, the kingdom of Englassia wouldn't be naive enough to put an idiot prince on the throne. And even if his home nation didn't go after him for doing something like this, they would probably not allow the prince to fail, either. The chances of Elric becoming the king had plummeted down to zero. Anyhow, a person's life is not only about becoming the king. You must still somehow make up for what happened today, but perhaps you can reflect afterward and examine your life slowly. I also became a demon lord because of a series of unexpected events. After all, I never really wanted to become a demon lord, anyway. Now that I am one, there's no going back, so I suppose I will just utilize my position properly. Is Your Majesty the demon lord trying to comfort the prince, I mean, me? I thought you'd be scarier and more malicious to humans. I'm not comforting you. But about your question, I'm basically a pacifist. Hearing my words, Elric huffed, frustrated. It seemed that he had accepted reality and had fallen silent. I was so foolish to have been deceived. Gavan, we must take responsibility. Your Highness. You're the one who came up with this plan. I will probably be trialed for having been deceived by you as well. You should prepare yourself for what's coming, Count Gavan. Elric really seemed to have come to terms with reality. He cooperated and followed the guards. That's right, Gavan was the conspirator behind all this, anyone could see that now. It was he who instigated Elric and caused the commotion this time. My guess was that Gavan was being used as well. There was quite the mysterious organization behind him. But I couldn't just stop and accept this conspiracy theory. It was better to investigate seriously. But to this day, Sally had not been able to find any clues. However, if he could catch that sniper, maybe we would get some answers. Other than her, there was someone else I could question as well. Well now, Gavan-san, may I ask you something? I turned to the arrested Gavan. Well, what is it? What could you, a demon lord, want from me? Even now, Gavan's attitude did not change. Please tell me, what was your intention in manipulating Prince Elric? Ahaha, what are you on about? No idea, I know nothing. What are you on about? You're the one who deceived me. Where's your proof? I was indeed asked by His Highness the Prince to invite you here, but I had no idea that you were up to some plot like this. Gavan Dono, there's no use finding excuses now. Not just me, but every councillor here saw what happened. Johann wouldn't allow Gavan to find any excuses. Most of the councillors agreed. Even the people who were tied up and arrested nodded along. We had our witnesses. But I really don't know anything. The prince was the one behind everything, I was just following orders. You're the one who got that orb and pledged it to me. That wasn't me at all. I've already said this once, please show some evidence. It looked like Gavan planned to play dumb until the very end. He was too cunning for the circumstances, surely, he was confident enough that he wouldn't leave any clues. If that were the case, would that mean it'd be difficult to incriminate him as well? He would probably have a horrible reputation for a while, but probably intended to shamelessly come back some time after. This was why noblemen were so annoying. You can't get careless, or else you won't be able to defeat them completely. I could just resort to force and end the matter easily, but that was our last resort. Suddenly, the gate opened. His Majesty Aegil has arrived. All present, salute at once. As the servant shouted, people began to kneel. I almost knelt alongside them, but thankfully Shuna and Benimaru stopped me. If I really did that, that would have been an actual problem. Apart from us and Hinata, everyone immediately began to show their respect. Even the speaker of the council lowered his head a bit. As expected from the king of Englassia. Englassia King Aegil disinterestedly glanced at the few councillors Sally had tied up, and then turned his eyes back to look at me. This middle-aged man had a beautiful face. The thick blonde hair and the tilting mustache suited him very well. It seems that my son has given you much trouble. I suppose so. But the misunderstanding has been resolved. I didn't want the matter to get any more severe. If the human society were willing to accept us, I suppose I could turn a blind eye to some rudeness. Is that so? I have not come as king, but as a father to apologize to you, as well as to thank you. As he finished, King Aegil nodded to me lightly. If even the king was willing to lower his head in apology, this whole ordeal was likely resolved. I accept your apologies, but hopefully this won't happen again. Yes, I understand. I wish to build a healthy relationship with you, too. King Aegil's eyes were sharp and straight when he said this. I could tell he was genuine. It was best to not ponder too much this time and just believe him. If he were to betray us, we'd worry about that in time. Then I look forward to hearing from you. Likewise. We shook hands. By the way, he seemed to have ignored the table I just broke. And thus, we made amends. Everyone, please raise your heads. Hearing this, people began to do so. Everyone here understood full well what had just transpired, but it didn't mean that anything would ever be on the official record. After all, a king shouldn't lower his head to anyone. This was probably King Aegil's last resort. Father. Enough, I shall re-educate you. Yes, I understand. Good. King Aegil nodded before turning to Gavan. Count Gavan. Yes, sir. Weren't you going on about wanting evidence? Do you think you can do whatever you want because I'm not around? No, there's no such thing. I've contacted the magical inquisitors. You will be handed to them. Ah. Gavan's face paled and he started to plead. I beg your forgiveness. I'll confess everything, please have mercy. His expression was convincing enough, but King Aegil's reaction was rather cruel. Take him away. Yes, sir. His servants eyed the knights protecting the king and began to move. The knights also moved to arrest Reiner and the others as well. Reiner Dono, Guy Dono, please turn yourself in as well. Stop this, get off me. Do you know who I am? Reiner and the others were shouting and trying to resist before a group of men in black hoods showed up. They immediately fell silent. These people were probably the so-called magical inquisitors. Even though Reiner and Guy tried to resist, the newcomers effortlessly took care of them. While the two were not weak, they were like infants to these hooded figures. It was obvious that these inquisitors were no ordinary people. As expected from the kingdom of Englassia, they were, indeed, a powerful nation. They had kept leashes on some very impressive fellows. Report. It has been deduced that this is likely a demonstration of force, in order to inform Master that this kingdom possesses strong individuals as well. In other words, he was probably saying don't look down on us. It was a public announcement to remind us that Reiner was not the strongest that Englassia could offer, so as to save the face for their nation. Being a king sure looked hard. He had to plan something like this just so that the demon lord wouldn't get the better of them. If Elric's plan actually worked, the king would probably have wanted to use me to fortify the authority of Englassia. But to be honest, if they didn't have even the slightest evil intentions, there was no way they could pitch a fight against any other cunning nobleman. Sorry for the interruption. Our nation shall take care of the remaining matters. Leaving this line, the king and his men left. They were smart and even took the domination orb. But that wasn't a problem. It'd be problematic if they used it for evil causes, so I secretly broke a core functioning part. I didn't want to get more involved in the matter, so I saw them off quietly. We rested a bit in the afternoon and reconvened the conference thereafter. Unlike the morning conference, the councillors all seemed highly unmotivated. There was no need to threaten these exhausted noblemen. They needed to examine and pass important motions. First, acknowledge the Tempest Federation as a nation. Second, allowing the inclusion of the Tempest Federation into the council. Thirdly, sharing the military authority of the council with the Tempest Federation. Those were the three main items that passed. The document I forced them to examine was passed as well. There was a unanimous agreement. Although it was a lengthy process with various complications, my document was still passed. And the matter was set in stone. I wasn't good at dealing with the cunning councillors. It was very tiring scheming and detecting words in words. I handed all that to Raphael-san. Understood. In terms of results, we kind of used brute force to resolve the issues. But I didn't really participate. It was Hinata and our precious little Shuna-chan. I, on the other hand, would be considered the benefactor who rescued Elric. That was enough to prove my generous heart. I was personally very satisfied. Apart from that, it was a fool's errand to use force against the demon lord. They all knew this, so I suppose it was very meaningful. The conference ended smoothly, and we all left. And so, the conference, filled with twists and turns, had finally concluded.